Yo, how's it going, folks? It's me again, your boy Tabo, and this is another lesson on SVG for the web. And today's lesson is going to be on masking and clipping. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so we're going to create our HTML file. So again, SVG. Now, the reason why I keep repeating this is for practice, so that you see it so often that it becomes second nature, so that you don't even have to think about it anymore. You've seen it so many times, you're just bored with it. Usually when you start to get bored with things, this is when you have locked them into memory. You know how you can always remember the songs that you don't like? You can somehow sing the lyrics to the song even though you don't really like the song. Yes, this is how that works. But when you get bored, this is when you've actually locked all this stuff into your memory, and it's almost second nature. Okay, let me stop talking now and let's get to work. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is create my mask tag, right? Now you create that by say mask. This is how you create the mask element, and then I'll give it an ID. I'll call it mask box. Okay, and then I will create then a closing mask element. There we go. And so in between, this is where I'm gonna create a shape that I want to use as my mask. So this time I'm gonna create a rect. I'll say 600. Say 600, and I'll make it 150. Sorry, y equals 150, and I'll give it a width of 200 and height of 200 as well. Okay, so I'm gonna close it like that for now. So there we go. So now we've got our mask. Okay, another thing that I would like to do, I would like to actually fill this mask with a particular color. Now how masks work is that if I give it a fill color of white, then it means that if I then use this mask on another square, let's say another rect of the same size, then what will happen is if I make it black, then it will basically make it invisible, like an alpha. If you know what an alpha mask is, then it means that nothing is visible, and when it's white, then everything is visible. That's pretty much what it means. So I want to use a gradient to fill it. So I want to create my gradient here, so I'll create a dev tag, and then in between my dev, then this is where I will create my gradient. So I want to create a linear gradient. Okay, and the values I'll say x1 is equal to 0 and x2 will be equal to 1. What that means is that it's just going to be running along the horizontal line, that's all. And I will give it also an ID of, I'll call it gradient, since I'll only be using this one gradient, so that should be fine. Okay, so then I'll close that and then create another closing gradient tag. Okay, so in between, this is where I'm going to create my stop tag in order to specify how I want my colors to flow. So I'll say my offset at 0%. At 0%, I want my stop color to be, make it white. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just duplicate these guys to speed up the flow. Okay, and then I'll make this one black. That is at 50%. So if at 50% this will be black, and then at 100% I want it to be white again. So you'll just basically, it's going to be a square with a white line strip running in between, I mean in the middle. Okay, the next thing that I'm gonna do is, since I've already created my mask, then I'm gonna create a rect. I'll say rect, say x equal to 600, y 150. I give it a width also of 200. 200, and I'll say height of 200 again. And then I want to fill it with magenta. Then close it. And I'm going to create another one. Okay, this one I will fill it with the color blue. Okay, so now I need to add the mask. I'll say mask. This is the mask attribute, and I'll say mask is equal to URL. And now I'll say mask box. So yes, I'm using the mask box. And what else do I here? Because I never gave the mask a filling color, so it's gonna be black by default, which will not help us achieve the goal that we want to achieve. And what I want to do rather is use the gradient. So what I'm gonna do is I'll say URL, and then I'm gonna use gradient. Okay, so now we got our gradient. Okay, so let's check out what it looks like. Okay, there we go. So this is two rects. There's the blue one, and then there's one that is magenta underneath. Now the reason why you can see this strip here is because this part is see-through. This is where the alpha is allowing us to see what is underneath, because here on our gradient we've got white and white over here, and then here in the middle we've got black. So that's why you can see the blue here, meaning that this part is visible and only this little strip in the middle is invisible. Therefore we're seeing the rect that is underneath, which is magenta, which has the color of magenta. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna play around with this and maybe just add something a little more exciting to it. I would like to add an animation to it just to kind of spice it up a little bit. So I'll say rect, and then I'll remove that over there. And so in between the rect, then I will create an animate transform. So because I want to animate a transform attribute. Okay, so I'll say attribute name. The attribute name will be transform. Okay, so the next one will be, say, the attribute type. Attribute type will be XML. Alright, and then the next one will be type. You wanna just animate the rotate. And then say duration, I would like it to animate for a duration of 5 seconds. And then we'll say repeat count, I would like it to repeat indefinitely. Okay, so now let's close our animate transform. Let's check out if everything is okay. Alright, so there we go. So now this will be applied to our rect over here. So this should create an interesting effect, I think. Oh yeah, one thing that I need to specify, yes, because I have everything else, but I forgot the actual attributes that allow me to animate. So I need to give the values here as to how I want to animate this. So I say 0 degrees, I want to start at 0, and then I'll specify here the transform origin so that it rotates from the center and not from any other point, otherwise it's going to rotate from the page to 0 point. So I'll say from and then to. I'll say I want it to go to 360 degrees, and this remains the same, say 600. Okay, so now let's check out how our animation looks. Okay, that is still wrong. Okay, so I need to work. Yeah, how did I get this number? Sorry, my bad. Say 250, then 250. Okay, there we go. So now there's our nice animation. Now what I noticed about this is it looks really cool because it creates sort of like an optical illusion. It looks like it's scaling, but it's not actually. All that it's doing is just rotating, but because it looks as if it's scaling up and down, but that's not actually what's happening. The animation is just on the rotation. So when I did this, then I saw that I thought, yeah, this is really cool. It's like an optical illusion. So yeah, something that you can play around with. Okay, so this is what masking does. Okay, and if I were to make it, I can also just play around with these values. I'll say this is black, and I'll turn this into white. Now let's see what that will do. Okay, so now you've got this kind of effect. So you can basically manipulate these values, you know, as much as you like just kind of see what sort of effect you can create with it. You know, just be free and just do whatever the heck you feel like doing. So yeah, I'm gonna take it back to the old values because I kind of liked how it looked, this whole optical illusion thing. I think that's interesting. Okay, so the next one that I'm gonna create is a clipping path. Okay, now a clipping path, basically it doesn't use any color. It just uses a shape to basically clip a part of it, another shape. So to illustrate how that works, I will do this. First I will create my clipping path. So I'll just create some space over here. Okay, so I'll say clip path. And then I will give it an ID of, I will call it clipper. Okay. Okay, here's our clip path, and then inside I'd like to create a rect. And then I will give this rect, I'll say X, so I'll give it a value of 600. And I will say Y is equal to 500. And I will give it a width of 200 as well. 200, and then I'll say height is also equal to 200. And so I will close it like that. Here I don't have to specify any colors, so none of that is necessary. And so now that I've got my clipper, that's pretty simple. Now I'm going to create a rect here, then I'm going to clip. Just simple as that. So I'll say rect, and I will say X equals to 600. And then I will give it a Y value of 500, and then I'll give it a width of 200, and I'll say height also 200, and then I will give it a filling of, I want the color to be olive. And now I have to then use my clip path, and I'll say clip path URL, and then I want to use clipper. Okay, so now we close this guy. Okay, let's see if everything is in order. There's something that's a bit yeah, the size of this thing over here. Okay, first of all, let's remove that and let's just see what our square looks like, or our rect. Okay, so there we've got our rect there. You see, it's the same size as that one. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna reduce the size of our clipper so that we can see how it is clipping rect over here. So I'll say ClipPath URL clipper. Okay, so let's look. You see what's happening? So now it's basically clipping this part of the rect, so we can only see that part, and then the rest of it is not visible. If you want to then make it, let's then move this a little bit so that we can then see, let's make that like that, you see, and then I'll go all the way to 750. So now what's happening is that it's clipping that part over the, so this is where it is over here. Okay, so that's kind of how the ClipPath works. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'd like to then create an animation again, and then add it to it to also create another cool effect. So let's see what's happening now. Well, now you can see the whole thing. Okay, so I will then say rect, remove that, and what I'm going to do is just copy this guy. I'm just going to copy that and then just paste it in there. Simple as that. Well, not as simple as that. Then what I need to do now is give it different values. So let's say that one will be 600, because the point of origin is different for this rect. So now I need to get the right value so that it rotates from the center. So yeah, there we go. So now this is what we get with our clipping part. This is the effect that we created. If I once again make it smaller to see what will happen, 150. Okay, so that's what's happening there. But once again, you know, the point of origin has shifted because the size is different now. So I would have to shift it so that it rotates from the center of this guy over here. But this is just to illustrate the point. I don't want to do a lot of things, but this is, yeah, what this is. So I think it's pretty cool. You know, for starters, there's a whole lot of really cool stuff that you can create. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. Anyway, so let's go back to the original values. Go back, and I'll also like this one again because it also has some sort of optical illusion kind of thing, just messes with your eyes. I like this sort of stuff, really cool. Okay, so yeah, this is basically what I have for you guys, and I think you can just take this, combine it with every other thing that you've learned, and just see, you know, what can come out of it. I mean, along the tutorial series, then I've got also something planned. You know, we're going to create an interface, but that's going to come a bit later on. So we're still going to see how we can declare styles using, or maybe manipulate the styles of SVGs using CSS, and then we're going to move on to JavaScript. So there's still a whole lot of stuff coming, and also filters will be coming up next in the next tutorial. So for now, this is it. Don't want to talk a lot, want to save the time. So yeah, love and peace, my brothers and sisters. Have fun. Till the next time, I'm out. If you thought this video was good and helpful, please press that like button. For any questions or input, just remember to leave a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe to my channel and I'll keep more stuff coming your way.